At the outset, good morning to our honorable, respectable research person and head of the Department of Humanity, Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University, Hyderabad, Professor Parvati ma'am, and I also say good morning to Shamlata ma'am as a coordinator of this refresher course. And also I say good morning to all of you. Before do I my micro teaching, I will introduce myself. I myself Dr. S.G. Kulkarni, Assistant Professor in English from Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose College, Nanded in Maharashtra. Today in my micro teaching, I have prepared the topic entitled Verbal Communication in English Language Teaching for my lecture delivering. As per the content area of our refresher course in English and today's need of our rural area students, I have prepared this topic for my lecture. Today, my purpose to present this topic in my lecture is not for you, but with consideration that you are my rural area students who want to improve their academic performance or academic career and personality development with communication skills. So, as per the review of article, in my present lecture, I have given following important points in my content. So first I will write the title of my topic, that is Verbal Communication in English Language Teaching. So as per the review of article, in what way I presented that particular content which gives the most important points. First important point I have to deliver in my lecture is introduction and need of verbal communication in English language teaching. Second important thing is, then question arises, definition and meaning. So definition and meaning of verbal communication and English language teachings. So second important point in my content is definition and meaning. Third important point that is very important for us in this particular study, what is the exact aim? And that aim is the third important point that I have to prepare. So aim of the study of verbal communication. In ELT. Fourth important, I will first explain the content and then explain the whatever I have presented in my whole PPT, and that will be efficient for us as an effective communicator, as an effective reader, as well as an effective writer. So first I will give the more importance to the review of article, review of that particular part I have presented in my particular lecture. So here fourth important point I have given more importance to the importance to study. Study verbal communication and need in English language teaching. Fifth important point is also important for us because my title is verbal communication in English language teaching. But here most of the importance we have to give the analysis of verbal communication. When we look at the basic skills of language, there are 4 basic skills. But first important basic skill is listening. Second important basic skill is speaking. Third important basic skill is reading, and last basic skill is writing. So in that sense, when we look at the 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th point, I may give the more importance to the analysis of verbal communication with listening, speaking, reading, and fourth one is writing. This is the analysis that is most important for us when we say that is the English language teaching. When we say that is the verbal communication. Both are correlated with each other. And I am presenting my lecture for my rural area students. And there is a only consideration here. You are in front of me, there is no question, but I have prepared this particular lecture for that rural area student. So here, and last important, that is the conclusion, and that is expected for the satisfaction of our more students. And that is the last important point. These are the important points in my content. Then I may explain one by one when we look at the PPT, in what way that is given and in what way that is given most importance. So here in our Swami Ramanand Tirth Marathwada University, academic year is most important. That may be the student of BA first year, BSc first year, BCom first year. But if he has done the academic performance in a good manner, but when we do any academic performance, communication skill plays most important. And when we look at the compulsory English in our Swami Ramanand Tirth Marathwada University, in what way anthology has given more importance, in what way prose has given, in anthology, prose, poetry, grammar and communication, all things are given most important. And in that consideration, when I am going to explain about the verbal communication in English language teaching, in what way I have given in present academic year, students study an anthology of English prose, poetry, grammar and communication skill. And in what way when we look at the verbal communication. But here when we look at the particular aim, why I preferred this particular introduction, here I may say that if we look at the introduction and need of verbal communication in first point, that is also the first point. For academic year students in schools and colleges, as a teacher, first we have to study English as a subject. Second important thing is another, when we are going to study the particular English as a subject, then question arises, how it is possible? Without the language it is not possible. So language, so we will study English as a language. First English as a subject, second English as a language, and third important thing is to improve academic performance of any academic student, which is the most important thing. And in what way? Interdisciplinary skill he has maintained to study the particular subject. That may be Marathi, that may be English, that may be Hindi, any subject may be. But medium of communication is language, and that language is most important for him. So here, this is all need of ELT, English language teaching. When we look at the verbal communication, when we look at the language, English language teaching is most important for me. And when we look at the verbal communication and academic students' performance, three things are correlated with each other. Second important thing is similar to this, the need of verbal communication. Why it is need here? Very important, because our students' performance and personality development is not possible without the communication. So here communication is nothing but the communication to interchange their thoughts, opinions and information among the students by speech, by writing and by signs. So here, three things are possible for him with the help of verbal communication and with the help of non-verbal communication. And in this way, so with this introduction and need of our purpose to study verbal communication in English language teaching to our students is to prepare them good communicator as well as good reader and writer in English language teaching with this study. So in that direction I have prepared this particular contents points. So second important thing is here definition and meaning. In this particular definition, when you look at the communication process is most important, knowledge of language is most important. Again, the two minds of persons who are communicating, that is also important for us. In the same way, then he may become a good effective communicator as well as reader as well as writer. So, but when you look at the verbal communication, we means listening, speaking, reading and writing. But when you look at the mother tongue, listening and speaking is most important. But as a student, academic student, reading and writing is most important. But listening and writing, listening and speaking are natural process. That is the indirect process. But listening and speaking, reading and writing, four are basic skills. In the same way, in English language teaching, in what way I explained. Next important thing is aim of the study. So, what is my aim? Which are the four basic skills. Next important, as per my title significance is verbal communication in English language. In what way? Spoken communication plays most important role. Written communication plays most important role, as well as verbal communication plays most important role. In the same way, importance to study verbal communication, we may give the verbal and non-verbal communication most important. Analysis of verbal communication, listening, that is the first activity, that is most important, and without the linguistic, physical, psychological factor, listening is not possible for us. Similarly, speaking also plays most important role, oral communication, natural order, features of spoken English, to speak a good speaker. In the same way, reading skill is also important because of the complete understanding. In the same way, without the listening and reading, there is no interpersonal to the self. In the same way, speaking and writing are interpersonal communication. In the same way, when we look at the purpose, sub-skills, characteristics of good reader, he may possible how to read the text.
Yes. Good morning, all of you. I am very happy to see you again after 3 weeks. Yesterday, principal called me in his office and said, Rajiv, you have to share your experience with your student tomorrow. And at 10 o'clock, all students, first year, second year, and third year, will gather in conference hall. Our conference hall is newly set up. With all ICT equipment, you use it and present before the students. So, and here, whatever I got, the skills, I give credit to the Human Resource Development Center, Jain 2, Hyderabad. I thank the director, I thank coordinator and even Department of English in this university, because they invited such a resource person which changed my teaching learning attitude. Today, just I start my lecture before you with a thought or a picture. Today I have a picture for you. Yes, just observe this picture. And we will come to discuss after I complete this. Just observe this picture. You might have know about this picture. There is a photo and photographer. Just observe. Now second one is, I will ask just 2 or 3 questions to you. We are living in the world of dash dash. Dash dash and dash dash. Very good. Science and technology. And I am very happy that I complete my ELT in Technology University, which is not a traditional one for me. Then how we start learning? We start learning from acquisition of very good language. Then what we are doing now? What we are doing now? You are learning and I am teaching. Learning cannot be possible, teaching cannot be possible without learning. These two processes are correlated. So, the next point is teaching and learning. Now, I got, here is 1 and 2 points here. Then technology, what gives technology to us? What gives technology to us? Technology gives us new trends. New trends. Now we can gather these all together to form a meaningful title or topic for today's discussion. And is new trends in language, teaching and learning. Now I want to know how many trends do you know? Any trends which is helpful to teaching and learning process? Any trend? Do you know? Okay, I always like to have a meaningful voice in the class. So I heard some from, that is email, here are some. These are the trends. Computer assisted language learning, web based learning, email, blogs, mobile phone, chat rooms and web resources for learning. The objective of my today's discussion is to learn new trends in English and to practice the new trends in ELT according to our needs. What we need today, that needs how we can complete with the help of these trends. How we can help these trends to face-to-face learning and distance mode learning also. Because I have experience of near about 7 years as a coordinator in distance mode learning. These all trends help me for effective communication, effective teaching. In my distance mode learning, there are 752 PG students. I manage all the students by forming different WhatsApp group and messages from email, and even directing them to use web sources. There is one university in Maharashtra, only one university which is digital, and is Yeshwantrao Chauhan Maharashtra Open University, only one university, and I am a little worker of that university as a coordinator. So these all trends help me for effective communication, giving them resources on web This is very big topic to discuss. Yesterday in class, I think someone, Mohan, discussed about the computer-assisted language, and even Kishore sir, for our in refresher course, he also told about these all trends in learning. What is computer-assisted language now? In this approach, computer and computer-oriented resources are being used. Do you have any experience? Computer-assisted language?
Yes, sir.
Yes. How is your experience?
Sir, my doctoral research is on computer-assisted language learning.
Yeah.
So, it has made inclusive education truly possible. Today we talk highly about individualized learning and self-paced learning. I think CALL is an excellent tool for providing such kind of education and ELT as well.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Yeah, mobile learning also. This is called CAL. I will come to then. MAL is also there. Yes, this one is MAL. Mobile assisted language learning. Every student, though it may be a rural student or urban student, has Android mobile. There are lot of software available on website. Free software, you can download any and use it. If your teacher fluently teaching and if you not get the meaning of words, you can just search in your mobile, you can find it. It's very easy. Nowadays learning is very easy and even teaching is also very easy. But what we need to know ourselves. We need to know also who I am. I just give example of Bhagavad Gita or Gita, what we call. What is Gita after all? Gita is nothing but to know thyself. Krishna on the battlefield teaches Arjuna, who are you? And we as teachers need to teach our students, who are you? You are a student, then your duties will be which lies to you. If I know I am a teacher, I will understand what to do and what not to do. Now, just come. So you use whatever resources we have. We requested our management. That's why we have this hall. That's why we have these resources. Management accepted. Though our college is situated in rural area, they provided this facility. And why we not use this facility? We use this facility of our development. If you develop the nation, all will develop. Then come to the next point. There is chat room. We chat on mobile also, but the chat is meaningless. Just a time pass. If we chat with meaningful object, then it will give you benefit. So do at least your 30 minutes in a day, a meaningful chat. At least visit a web source in a day for your development, for your students' development. These are some learning resources on the website available. On the website, LibriVox. How many of you know LibriVox? Yeah, Mohan from the row know the LibriVox. LibriVox, where audio books are available. One can, even while traveling, can listen these books. How many of you know SWAM? SWAM? Yes, WYAM. Yeah? SWAM. How many of you know? You can easily join the course. Even at night you can download, and teachers are available there offline and online also. These all these giving this knowledge to you because you are from rural area, you can do this. So dear friends, To conclude, there are nutrients have some advantages and disadvantages also. To conclude that though no method is perfect, it is we decide which method is suitable for our class. Thank you for your patience.
Good morning. Any discussion about the methods and what is the best method to be employed in a English or for that matter in any language classroom always generates a lot of discussion, and it ends with disagreements and sometimes bitter verbal fights. Most of the time, the moderators, they'll have to force stop or terminate the discussion by saying that there is no best method. Today, for the discussion, we are taking that statement, there is no best method. Why? With special reference to the article written by Prabhu from National University of Singapore. This content of this paper may seem a little rudimentary for those people who are very much into ELT, because it was published in 1990 and a lot of advancement has been made in the field. For those people who are not into the ELT very much, deep into that, let me list out major methods which are commonly used in the field of ELT. There are, from the beginning of 20th century, there had been different attempts to find out what method suits in a foreign language classroom or in a second language classroom. The earlier method, traditionally people used to use the grammar translation method, translation from Latin to Greek, Greek to Latin to English. But later on, in the beginning of 1900s, they slowly moved into direct method, and in the mid of 20th century, some people experimented with audio-lingual method, and then a host of methods came all together, which could be labeled as designer methods influenced by the humanistic approaches and the communicative language teaching approaches. And some people brought with the silent way method. And then in 1980s, some people proposed the communicative language teaching, community language learning approach, and TBLL, task-based language learning. And some people said that one single method will not suit any classroom. That's why we have to choose the best part of the methods and to make an eclectic method, which is a combination of several methods. Some people said, especially the incorporation of the musical instrument in the classroom, they proposed the Suggestopedia, and some proposed the idea of total physical response. Despite having these many methods, right now we have almost 10 methods right in front of us. Despite having this many methods, why all the discussions about which is the best method to be employed in a classroom ends with the not reconciliatory statement, there is no best method? That is the question. Isn't there the best method at all? Prabhu says that the statement there is no best method has got two meanings. The first meaning is elocutionary content or elocutionary meaning of the statement, which is a contextual, very temporary meaning, and which is used to terminate the discussion without causing any harm to the people who were the participants in the discussion, to declare a legitimized non-resolution of the discussion and to escape from the discussion and to stop the debate from going to a physical fight from verbal fight. And it is used as a tool to reconcile the conflicting view and the parties. But that is a temporary meaning of it. The more important meaning, Prabhu says that it is prepositional meaning. Prepositional meaning, instead of stopping or terminating the discussion at that point, it seeks to begin a new discussion. It works as a trigger or a restart of the discussion why there is no best method. Isn't it possible to have a best method in the classroom? So there are three arguments presented here by Prabhu. The first is there is no best method because it all depends. It all depends. Depends on what? Depends who the method is for and in what circumstances the method is being used and for what purpose it's going to be used. That means there is no best method means there is no single method which is best for everyone, as there are important variation in the teaching context that influences what is best. To put it in another word, this is different methods are best for different people, for different teaching context. The problem arises here. There are different people and different teaching context. Is it possible to identify and fix or control the different variables and the different context here? If it is possible, we can say that a particular method is best. But unfortunately, this is not possible. The contextual difference and to find out, identify and control the variables in that, it's not very easy. The problem is we fail to show a relationship between the contextual factors and the decision that we make about the methodology that we are going to apply. And when we fail that, we finally give up adhering into a particular method and develop our own procedures, and that will actually enable us to run our class, to operate our class and to achieve our aim. That means it finally becomes a teaching package. It's not an application of a particular method. So no single method is used there, rather it exposes a plurality of methods. So the question again still remains why there is no best method. So here, second argument. When the first argument didn't give you any substantial result in that, we are going to the second argument, which is there is no best method because there is some truth in every method. That means any method only contains the partial truth, not the full truth. Any method also contains partial falsehood. That means if you are able to identify objectively what is the best part of each method, and if you are able to take it out separately and to club it into an eclectic mode or into an eclectic blending, you will be able to make out a best method out of that. But is that possible? No, because it is still unclear which part of which method is best and which is not best. So again, the second argument about why there is no best method will not work. So Prabhu asked you the question, why can't you rethink what does the best mean? Best means, in a popular understanding, best means as much learning as possible, as quickly as possible. There are two elements contained here. As much learning as possible means the quantification of the result that has been achieved in a classroom with a time reference, within a limited period of time, what is the quantity of learning that has been achieved. The problem is this cannot be verified without having a scientific experiment with a scientific spirit. And is a testing of the method possible? This is not possible because any teaching activity is an interaction between the human being. That is why the testing of method is not possible. Then it remains a fancy. No, it is not possible, and we will fancy that it's possible, but actually it is not. And latest researchers say that, and the language learning ability is an implicit knowledge, and it is not the quantity that is to be assessed, but its quality. And it is not the grammar that is to be checked, but the practice. It is not the knowledge, but the skill. It's not the explicit knowledge that is, but the implicit knowledge. And language ability, if it is implicit, that means that any teaching that takes place, even though the students has learned a particular thing at this point, he may acquire implicitly some potential to learn, which can never be assessed. So if some learning happens in a particular class, that can also be because of the potentiality that he has got in the previous class. So with a particular class, in a particular act of teaching, how much learning has been done, it's impossible to assess. That is why he still asks you the question, then it's not possible to find out what is the best method. When it is not possible what is the best method, we all agree the fact that there are some classes which are better than the others. In some classes, students learn better than the other students, better than the other teachers' class. Then what is the differentiating or decisive determining factor in that? Prabhu says there is something called teacher's sense of plausibility. Teacher's sense of plausibility means it's teacher's involvement in the class and teacher's subjective understanding of the teaching they do, and how non-mechanically they perform the procedures and the tasks and they operate the task in the class. That means the teacher's sensibility, teacher's sense of plausibility. So the conclusion is that there is no best method means every method is best if the teacher is the best with best sense of plausibility. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I will be talking on the topic tone between the norms, innovations in world Englishes. Good morning, everyone. I am going to talk on the article Tone Between the Norms, Innovations in World Englishes. It's an article written by the Nigerian linguist Ayo Bamgos. Now, we all know that today there is not just one English. English is no longer the pejorative of the British nor the Americans. Rather, we have Englishes, or we have the term world Englishes. Can anyone tell me what the word world Englishes mean?
Belonging to different geographical areas.
Okay.
American English, Australian, Indian, British.
Okay, so there are many varieties of Englishes today. Okay, so the Indian linguist, the very famous Indian linguist Braj Kachru, actually defines this term world Englishes by giving a diagrammatic representation of three concentric circles. I think yesterday Pradhan sir actually mentioned that. So he's got three concentric circles, and there is the innermost circle known as the inner circle, and it actually includes countries like the UK, US, Canada and Australia, where English is spoken as the native language. Then you have the second circle known as the outer circle, and it includes countries like India, Pakistan, Malaysia, Bangladesh, where English is used as a second language. And then you have the outermost circle, which is also known as the outer expanding circle, and it actually the circle includes many number of countries like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and most of the European countries, Japan, China, where English is actually used as a foreign language. Now the problem is, even though we acknowledge that there are a variety of Englishes, we still deem the non-native speakers English as something inferior, or we actually accord a secondary status to that particular English. Now what Ayo Bamgos does is he actually questions this kind of negative attitude or a biased attitude towards the non-speakers English. Now the irony is that we have actually the non-speakers are actually much more than the number of the native speakers who speak English. But in spite of the enormity of the size of the non-native speakers, what happens is we still adhere to the rules of the non-native speakers. And we forget that the cultural and linguistic plurality associated with the non-native speakers is what actually accounts for the ever expanding contours of the English language in general. Okay. And moreover, the influence, because we live in the contact zones, there is the exchange of culture and language, and as a result of that there is always the exchange of languages and phrases between different languages. And so the influence that we have or the non-native speakers have on the native speakers is great, and we tend to forget that. And what we have to do is we actually have to take into consideration these innovations and try to incorporate that into the native speakers language, which we normally don't. Now the problem with the innovations is that we actually lose the innovations in the process of codification, because we actually get torn between two norms. On one side we have the rules and regulations of the native speakers, and on the other side we have our very own norms. But then we have this tendency to we have the tendency to adhere to the native speakers norms. And one more thing, actually Ayo Bamgos talks about this particular topic from the perspective of the Nigerian speakers of English. But I have actually replaced those examples with our own language, some of the local languages that we use, so that we can relate to it more. Now coming back to innovations, like I told you earlier, it is torn between two norms, the native speakers rules and our own norms that we have. But Bamgos and Kachru both opine, or they assert rather, that native English is not the only norm for all Englishes, because again each English should be studied in the context of its own culture. And moreover, even when we talk about the native English, there is not just one native English, because even though we as academicians follow the British or the RP or the BBC English, amongst the youngsters we all know that it is American English which is becoming all the more popular. And we also need to understand that the non-native process is basically a process of innovation. We actually give to them. That is why we have the expanding contours of the native language. And to judge that those kinds of innovations or the influences that we have on the native English, we need to have endonormative means to judge that. By endonormative, I mean that the norms which are devised by us to suit our culture and our version of English. Now, talking about norms, Ayo Bamgos actually defines a norm as a standard language form or practice that serves as a reference point for other languages or other language forms or practices, and he basically identifies three types of norms. The first one is the code norm, which is actually a reference to the standard variety of language, a language that is chosen from a group of languages and which can be considered to be the one which could be used for official purposes. The second one is the feature norm, which actually deals with the aspects of language like phonology, morphology, syntactics, orthography, and the rules associated with them. The third one is the behavioral norm. Actually, this is the most flexible and pliable norm, because this deals with pragmatism and the creative process of nativization. Like for example, our idioms or the words which are culture specific all come under this norm. Okay, so now it is for us to decide, says Ayo, which norm can be actually modified or which can be actually codified from our repertoire of language uses. But this ambivalence is always there, the ambivalence between recognition and acceptance. Okay, we are always torn between the norms, because on one side we have this extreme adoration for the native speakers English and the reluctance to let go of that, and on the other side we have our own variety which is full of culture, which is full of cultural markers, and which serve as expressions of our identity and solidarity. So it is very important, but it's important for us to realize, says IO BAMGOS, that when we talk about different varieties and when we have our variety of English, we can only judge it and codify it within the norms of our own culture and our own regional or geographic variations. So probably it is when Salman Rushdie used the word chutnification, probably he meant the incorporation of our native varieties. Now idiomatic expressions are the greatest markers of our cultural codes, because if you take up all the idioms of different regions, we find some native element standing out there. Now paisa khana, maybe an Englishman wouldn't know what it means, but here we can very well identify that usage with the kind of corruption that is going on in our country. And I think even you have a similar term in Telugu. How do you translate that? Dablu Tenuda, yes. Okay, for Mohanagiri and Sarvana, I have actually used two caricatures there, where you find politician, one of them sticking out their tongue and they have a bag of money stuck in there. Okay, so there are similar idioms there, to eat one salt, and I mean our sense of respect for the elders, touching one's feet, name giving ceremonies and all that. So these are called calque varieties. Calque varieties means where we literally translate our idioms into the English language, and I agree with BAMGOS when he says that that is totally acceptable. And again, we have certain words which are very culture specific. For example, in Malayalam we have the term Pookalam. Yesterday we saw a muggu outside. Okay? Yeah. So Pookalam, my students come to me and ask me, ma'am, how do you translate this word? And if I want, I can say it's a floral carpet. But I always insist that they use the word Pookalam. Okay? So these kinds of words can be codified into the language by actually keeping the essence of the language. Again, when I was teaching in Tamil Nadu, I had, they used to come with the word Valakkapu. Okay? Maybe I can give a substitute by saying it is baby shower. But both have different cultural references. Okay. Semantic innovations, of course, are easily acceptable, because even this year I think 70 of our words went into the Oxford Dictionary. The last year IO had entered. This year many words related to relationships, food, etc. These are some of the words which actually made into. We even have the word Muligatoni. Can you tell what Muligatoni means? It's a Tamil word, Molagatanni. Okay. Then semantic innovations are Phonology again is a problem area, because we have in this class itself we have different varieties of English. We have Marathi English, Tamil English, Malayalam English, Telugu English. So we can actually have something called Indian English and get rid of all the gross irregularities in the language and maybe codify that. Nobody says pen or paper, because nobody can speak like a native English speaker. And these are the pedagogical model that we can have. We need to have concrete measures. We need to have good teachers, native English teachers, who can handle both, who have a knowledge of both the native language as well as the non-native culture. And codification is very important. Otherwise, our words just gets lost in the process. We need to have our own version of dictionary. So finally, BAMGOS states that it is important to know who speaks what variety of English and to whom and for what purposes.
I am Rupa Jose from St. Joseph's College, Moolamattam, Kerala. My topic is World Englishes, Agony and Ecstasy. This is a paper authored by Braj Bihari Kachru, who was an Indian linguist and he hailed from Srinagar, Kashmir. He passed away recently, that is last year, and he was a professor of linguistics in the University of Illinois. And Professor Kachru is also credited with coining the term World Englishes. This term has already been discussed many times here, and it's good to know that it is he who has coined the term World Englishes. Let us just skim through the contents of the presentation. So this particular paper highlights issues concerning the global spread of English and also the development of World Englishes, and it specifically focuses on the user's love-hate relationship with the language. The love-hate relationship with the language, that therein lies the agony as well as the ecstasy of the World Englishes. First, let us examine this particular term, World English versus World Englishes. Do you think there is some difference between these two terms, World English and World Englishes? Okay. Okay, the different varieties of English. That's true. It specifically refers to the English language as a lingua franca used in business, trade, etc. Whereas World Englishes specifically, refers to the different varieties of English and also the different English-based creoles in different regions of the world. So let us just look at this image. Here we see an informal representation of the different varieties of World Englishes. This is an informal representation only, okay. So there in Canada we have the Franglish because we have a lot of French speaking people there. Then there is the Spanish, Spanglish. There is the Black English, Wenglish, Nigerian Pidgin, then Hinglish, Chinglish and Singlish. So when you speak about the different varieties of English, this means that English is a pluricentric language. So again, we have already come across this term, pluricentrism. What does it really mean? A pluricentric language is a language with several standard versions, often corresponding to different countries. For example, we have different varieties of English, then French, Portuguese, German, Korean, Chinese, Spanish, etc. And whereas on the other hand, a monocentric language has only one formally standardized version, as in the case of Russian and Japanese. Again, the pluricentrism of English can be better understood when you look at the spread of English. Actually, the spread of English is a matter of ecstasy for the natives. And this English language in diaspora or in migration, the spread of English can be better explained in three phases. In the first phase, we have the expansion towards Wales in 1535, that is England, or English from England going to Wales in 1535, and then it reached Scotland, and then we know that England, Wales and Scotland got united and they formed Great Britain, and then we understand that the first phase is limited to the British Isles, and in the second phase we have the migration of English speaking populations from one part of the globe to another, that is especially to North America, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, etc. And then in the third phase, it is the Raj phase, the period of colonization, that is when English came to South Asia, Southeast Asia, Africa, Philippines, etc. So what are the implications of this spread? So it implanted English within new linguistic context where no English speaking communities existed previously. And again, English came into contact with genetically and culturally unrelated major languages. For example, in Africa it came into contact with Yoruba, Igbo language, etc. And in India, you know about the different languages with which English came into contact. And then English education was imparted in diverse contexts and methods than one consistent pedagogical model. So there were many reasons for this imparting of English knowledge. For example, we know about the civilizing mission, or English was said to be the language of the civilized people. Okay. And again, the language of Raj was going through acculturation. So in those countries where English was established or English became popular, English or the languages of those countries were going through an Englishization, and English was also going through a process of nativization. So this spread can be better explained using this Kachru's 3 concentric circles. You have already seen that. Okay, so 2 of the participants have already mentioned this. So just skimming through it. In the first circle we have the inner circle, that is the specifically concerned with the native speakers of English, and then there is the outer circle, that is those countries wherein English is used as a second language, and then the expanding circle where English is considered as a foreign language only, and it is used in highly restricted domains such as for international communication only. So again, the distribution of English into different parts of the world, actually it surpasses that of any other language. Demographic distribution of English surpasses that of any other language in the world. According to Kachru, in China there are more English using Chinese than the total population of UK, if we estimate just 5% of the Chinese using English. And in India, if we count 10% of the population as English knowing, it's the 3rd largest English knowing country after the US and UK. That is something remarkable. And so we understand that English is the only language with more non-native users than native users. When you speak about the institutionalization of English, especially in the outer circle mentioned by Kachru, Kachru calls for the slaughter of 5 sacred cows of English. Now what do you mean by sacred cows? The term sacred cows. It refers to an ideology or an idea or an establishment or a custom that cannot be criticized. For example, suppose we examine it in the Indian context. It actually has reference to the Indian context wherein we worship the cows as sacred. Okay. So Kachru calls for the sacrificing of these 5 sacred cows of English. These are the cows: acquisitional cow, theoretical cow, pedagogical cow, socio-linguistic cow, and ideological cow. So with regard to the slaughtering of acquisitional cow, Kachru says we need to break the notion that we need to acquire native-like competence of English. That is unnecessary. That is his opinion. And again, with regard to theoretical cow, he says ELT professionals, they should consider the definitions of native speaker and question the divide between native and non-native speakers. And pedagogical cow, its slaughtering of pedagogical cow means professionals should alter the methods, materials and models and reflect a sensitivity to local norms rather than reflecting the norms of the inner circle. And again, socio-linguistic cow, it acknowledges the pluricentricity of the world Englishes, and he calls for recognition of new canons. And again, there is one more, ideological cow. So slaughtering or sacrificing of ideological cow is actually a rallying against the ideological and symbolic power of killer English. There is certain ideologies associated, certain negative connotations associated with English, like imperialism, colonialism, etc. And we should go for more encouraging and positive applications of the power of English. So wherein lies the agony of English? That is what we are going to discuss now. Kachru speaks about the authors Ngugi wa Thiong'o of Kenya, Chinua Achebe of Nigeria and Raja Rao of India in order to describe the agony in the use of English. He says Ngugi expresses the power and the resultant agony of using English when he says African countries came to be defined in terms of the languages of Europe, like English speaking, French speaking, Portuguese speaking African countries. And for him, English is a cultural bomb. It annihilates a person's belief in their names, languages and their environment. And he also says that African thought is imprisoned in foreign languages, and that was a real matter of agony for him. And then again we have Chinua Achebe and Raja Rao of India, who also laments about the same kind of agony. Then some other reasons for this agony. So all these reasons actually relate to the spheres of power and control. So we know about the Foucault's opinion, Foucault's view that power is an organ of repression. So how is this organ of repression used in language? So what are the manifestations of linguistic power in a speech community? So there are many manifestations. You can read that. There is the crude linguistic power. For example, during the time of the Second World War, Japan imposed Japanese on Korean, Singaporeans and Malays. That was the crude linguistic power of language. And then there is the psychological pressure that a language exerts, as in, the claim of a language having a spiritual power, especially in ritualistic context. Then English is more concerned with the pragmatic power of language. That is, gaining control over a wide range of domains, especially political, religious, caste, etc., using the power of English, power of language. So we may conclude that even as we speak about the success stories of English, it has unleashed a variety of issues related to identity, elitism, etc. And we have the other side of English, the otherness of the language, which actually produces a kind of agony and schizophrenia for the users. What causes linguistic agony to one group is the cause of ecstasy for the other. Here again I have a poem by Kamala Das. I don't know whether you remember the title of the poem. An introduction. So she also reflects an agony, a sort of agony. Okay. So this is for your perusal. Thank you.